Farah Tanis is the co-founder, executive director of the Black Women's Blueprint, which works nationally and at the grassroots to address the spectrum of sexual violence against women and girls in Black and African American communities, and working with historically Black colleges and universities across the nation on issues of gender, race, sexuality, anti-violence policy, and practice. Farah was the national co-chair of the March for Black Women, and she chaired the first, and I was there and I had the privilege of being there, the first Truth and Reconciliation Commission in the US ever to focus on Black women and their historical and contemporary experiences with sexual assault. She is a NoVo Foundation Move to End Violence Program cohort member, of a movement maker, making movement, reshaping things for us. She's, let's see, a U.S. Human Rights Institute fellow and a member of the task force on the UN Convention of the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. So, and that's it. But we have asked Farah to do a pretty big job here. Yeah. And when we were thinking about who could do the closing plenary for this entire week, right? No pressure, but we're like, who can bring it all together? Farah. Farah can do that, right? Wow. And yes, absolutely. And I know she's been here with us all week, and she's going to bring it home. And you get a little, if you don't know, how many of you know Farah? Raise your hands. A lot of you. Okay, well, the rest of you, you'll never forget her after this. Thank you.
Thank you, dear. Oh. Woo! All right, I'm screaming already. I'm gonna need my glasses. I'm trying to get it set up. Thank you so much. Thank you, Calcasa. Thank you, NSAC. Thank you, all of these fabulous, radical, amazing individuals and groups who are here today, who are making the vision manifest for the world we want to see. And so thank you for that. These past few days, family, friends, comrades, right? We have in one way or another required of each other and of ourselves a turning and a stirring of the soul. Is that right? A turning and a stirring of the soul. This whole week, we've been asking ourselves really critical questions, right? We've been asking ourselves and sitting with what for many have been scary and even catastrophic, but yet triumphant times, right? Having heard the testimonies, having borne witness to the stories of Ketisha, of Melody, Dalton, Tarana, and Annabella, Bambi, and Lupe, what we know on this day and in this moment is they tried, right? They have tried to bury us, but they did not know that we were seeds. I bring you these words from the feminist sisters and the brothers of Mexico, a declaration from the global south. They tried to bury us, all of us, but they did not know. They didn't know that we were seeds. They didn't know that we would spring up through the cracks of concrete and grow into sequoia and redwood and Methuselah. They didn't know that we would spring up from the margins, from the fringes, to boldly shine the light of truth upon them. Yes, these past few days, family, friends, comrades, we have in one way or another required each other and of ourselves, we required ourselves a stirring of the soul in order to make bold moves. Like stirring, like it's like stirring the dimly lit embers so that we could reignite our flame, lest it disappears. Well, with an army of 1 billion ancestral voices rising behind us, before us, under, over, and all around us, we will not disappear. From today on, the question which must be answered, those of us who are weary, though I know we are tired, some of us have been afraid, though we've been knocked back and forth. Is it really a question that could be answered? Will you and I, will we rise boldly, all of us, in order to ensure the next generation is free? I was reminded yesterday by one drummer brother, one of the drummers, those fabulous drummers who played here yesterday, right, of an African proverb that says, if you want to go far, go together. Bold moves, family, comrades, friends, are required because we are living in fearsome times, when the lives of those in our communities are under threat. Bold moves are required because it is certain that we cannot survive without each other as a people. We must rise right here, right now, if we are to end sexual violence in one generation. We must acknowledge the whole truth of histories we know to be incomplete. There must be a return to the belief that we ourselves are not the center of the universe, but simply the custodians of future generations to come. For them, in the urgency of now, we have to stand in more than just solidarity. I am committed, and I ask you to make the commitment with me to continue to deploy a generosity of heart and a generosity of spirit as we face these hard times, to leave no one behind enemy lines. We have to stand boldly in communion now against the injustice of white supremacy, against the injustice of misogyny, against the injustice of transphobia, against the injustice of xenophobia, the injustice of just throwing people away. Like we heard in the brave stories of the speakers before me and the presenters of workshops, we have to twist the trauma of all forms of violence out of our bodies and out of our communities if we are to see the world we want. And we must do this not only for ourselves, but knowing that as we free ourselves, we do not only free our ancestors, many of whom could not be free, but we do what we do in order to free the generations still to come. That is what has been required of us this week. That is what it means to stir the soul and make bold moves. It also means, though, that we do what we have needed to do for a very, very long time. To stir the soul and make bold moves means we must also turn inward, engage in self-examination. It means we heal ourselves in this movement. It means we heal ourselves in this movement from competition. We heal ourselves in this movement from silos. It means we heal ourselves in this movement from hoarding, from the impatience with others, from taking away from one another. It means we give each other the gift of transparency and truth-telling, understanding, forgiveness for trespasses against us. Right here, in this moment, truly valuing the relationships we need in order to make this movement greater so that we can trust each other. It means we make a way out of no way for those who come up against adversity, and we hold ourselves accountable to move boldly with love and ensure each other's dignity as organizations, as advocates, as peaceful warriors, as survivors. And it will require the entire diversity of all of us and what we do to make the vision manifest, to end violence in one generation. It means having each other's backs. It means we draw closer. I know a lot of us don't even like each other. Come on, let's be real. We don't even like each other. We see somebody in a room, we won't go there. Somebody's going to a conference, we won't go there. Somebody organized a conference, we won't go there. Why? Because we're holding on to things when we mean and need to draw closer, not further from each other. It means we struggle for freedom together, arms locked, and come together in solidarity, in a solidarity economy which foregrounds the notion that as one of us rises, we all rise. We all of us rise. If we do all of this in this village of anti-violence advocates, we can liberate ourselves, we can make bold moves, and we can make sure our future generations of advocates and activists and those in our communities and the next generation is truly free. We've received the challenge this week from NSAC. From this day forward, we have to move fearlessly, break open the silence. There is reconciliation and restoration work to do in order to make bold moves, so we can create or demand what is already rightfully ours, revolutionary spaces where survivors or the most vulnerable are centered, fully centered. We can demand spaces of radical love where there is accountability and healing for harm doers, demand spaces of transformation and spaces of restoration. Unlike every other creature on this planet, in this earth, we are created to go through transformation. Live into the possibility that we can reorient our movement and make bold moves to boldly work for spaces where there is no domestic violence, no incest, no gang rapes, no dehumanization, no more of our sisters and brothers, including our trans sisters and brothers, having to put their bodies and their safety on the line to claim the peace of the American dream that should be theirs in the first place. No compelling of victims or survivors by the criminal justice system to do anything which may threaten or diminish their lives or livelihood. No more, no más. We're talking about a conscious kind of work that is needed to make bold moves, a kind of work where there is no fear, a kind of work that requires an awakening into a world where we make bold moves to support each other and truly have each other's backs across identities. We are not in this movement to learn to play by the rules. We are in this movement to learn to make something new that no one can shatter. To that end, we must see each other, the people next to you. We must see them in this movement, struggling every day, living in fear, with no funding, with no resources, and little to no guidance. Many of our movement leaders are survivors ourselves and come from families of survivors. We represent multiple generations of people, weaving the pieces of their lives back together, seeking justice for harm inflicted on them by others. We are on constant journeys towards righting the wrongs. We are on constant journeys towards healing, towards rewriting our narrative, and towards reclaiming our bodies and ourselves. And so family, comrades, friends, here at NSAC, we have an opportunity to go forward and boldly commingle our voices for the sake of one another as integral, and each of us critical pieces of this movement. For those of you in this movement who are in pain, who live in fear, who feel alone every day, and I know you're out there, we talk to each other, we call each other. For those of you who are under-resourced, living in silos and working in silos, today we offer you the armor of bold solidarity and radical generosity. In addition to the couple thousands you've seen here over the past few days, we are also millions at your side, beyond this room and beyond this conference. So I ask you, Join me as we straighten our spines and expand our lungs, as said by Tony Cade Bambara, and make the vision manifest where we as laborers for peace, truth, safety, and dignity can speak and cry and need and mourn and rage and move from sadness to healing in these types of communities, in this village NSAC has wonderfully created for us. So join me as we straighten our spines, expand our lungs, and make the vision manifest for movements where we each can stand in our power and where our youth are celebrated and their ability to articulate, to lead, to express and embody ancestral magic are recognized, where they and none of us are cut off from the possibilities we can create. So today, like seeds, they thought that they could bury us. I'm thinking of the struggles of Black Women's Blueprint and the repression and the silencing of the March for Black Women in social media. They thought they could bury us. But how blessed for us that we are here in community, here at NSAC. We have broken through the concrete to live, to step into the possibility of making space possible for survivors at the march, at the rally, in your organizations, everywhere. We all of us, what we need right here, all of us, we have it. We have all we need right here, right now in this space to rise and be bold for ourselves and for those who do not yet have the strength and resources to be bold. That is in itself a bold move from Calcasa, providing us all we need. That is in itself a bold move from NSAC, providing us all we need right here, because no movement, no civilization, no community, no new culture can be brought to the fore without a deep stirring in the soul, without mobilization, without thinking new thoughts, without working, without actually doing, without being willing to take a chance, a willingness to take a risk and risk it all, without a willingness to go against overwhelming odds, without a determination and a love for that very community for which each of us fights, without a desire to determine a better, more just destiny for ourselves and for each other, without a willingness to envision victorious peace and a fully healed people. Today we boldly name love and truth. And today we celebrate the rage and the wisdom and honor the persistence and the courage we have seen on this stage and in this room and this entire week. The kind of courage that demands we remain committed to being bold. The kind of courage, in my last words, the kind of courage that says we must honor each other's toils for peace and those who boldly spoke here at NSAC in the tracks for alternative justice, for campuses, for child sexual abuse, for connecting the dots, for empowering self-defense, for immigration, for prevention, for sex offender management, for intersections, for advocacy, for LGBTQ+ issues. We honor those who taught us how to use and challenge media and those who boldly spoke at leadership roundtables. And we honor and wrap those who spoke as youth and for youth with love. We wrap them with love. And most of all, we honor your work and your labor of love, a work of restoring and deploying voices as powerful forces of living boldly. Defiant, we are revolution, and we are volition, sheer will, and strength. And today, you, I, we remember our names and stand up and rise up as we salute each other, and we remember that healing, that peace, that freedom is our inheritance. Thank you.